morning, all. Now, this morning, I'm drinking La Coca Loca, and I'm listening to some creepy, copyright-free John Carpenter-inspired music, because I am a huge fan of John Carpenter. I was hoping he was basically like the precursor to me really getting into film, and also teaching myself to play the piano. So, thank you, John Carpenter. But in any case, today I want to talk about what a spiritual awakening means to an atheist. I'll break it down real simple. It means seeing truth in the world around you. Seeing the world, society, culture, all this stuff for what it really is. And, you very much do, regardless of whether spirit is a factor in that equation or not, go through the same things that, Eckhart fucking Tolle talks about, awakening, dark night of the soul, all this, because, once you have a sense of a veil being lifted, and you're like, aha, so the system my society runs on is made to benefit the evil, greedy, malicious people in the world, and it's made to condition us through forced schooling designated by the government, where we sit down for 8 hours that basically gives us ADD as children, to not question it and to be dangerously complacent to these things. And it also is an awakening to the immensity and the majesty of the universe as it is. Not the universe with, a wizard behind the scenes pulling the strings and everything, it's just the universe. And, you look at, like, the concept of a quasar, for example, all this dense matter that could have become a black hole, the result of a supernova, all this matter is pulling together and creating this intensely weighty star that is giving out radio signals, and even tricked Nikola Tesla, thank you very much, into thinking, hey, I'm getting communication with aliens here. It's one thing, and an infinite number of, very fantastic and special things. And none of these realizations require the existence of metaphysics. I am open to spirit. I'm more agnostic, I would say, than atheist. I just stress atheist as I want people to know I'm an anti-theist. I'm very much against religion. I think religion is part and parcel as to why this system runs as well as it does, because it serves no real purpose now except for programming people to believe this hive mind of their community and the extensions of those hive minds between churches. And I think, otherwise it's just very antiquated. It doesn't really regulate anything. It really encapsulates the evil it talks about, and it scrutinizes and says, no, this is deplorable. Lust, greed, envy, violence against your fellow neighbor, mistruths, lies, are all evil, they're sinful acts. But, hey, when we do it, doesn't count. Yeah. No, thank you very much. But for me, the real catalyst to, I suppose, spiritual awakening was the last time I did LSD. I did it on Christmas. And, see me and LSD, we go way back. We're good friends. I actually function pretty well on LSD, as long as I'm not on a stupidly high amount of it. I mean, for the last few years, I haven't done more than 200 micrograms at a time. 200 micrograms is a lot of LSD, I find. But if I'm like 150, I can act more sober than sober, and that is not just me being high and thinking that, it is people saying it to me. And so yeah, I did it, and my worldview just completely unraveled. Not in a bad way, not in a scary way. It was in a thoughtful, like, progressive way that my train of thought could follow. And I just started to realize that, like, hey, you know, we are on this planet that is like a living organism. And this is what, you know, people like Native Americans have been trying to say for a very long time. And, you know, if we don't change these ways of ours that are so negligent and detrimental, then we are ultimately going to be the undoing of that organism, or we are going to earn the wrath of that organism, and it is going to set off super volcanoes and fry our asses, or set off a huge pandemic. You know, maybe COVID was a bit of a warning. You know, that's one of the things I thought about. You know, there's so many ways we could end ourselves, or the planet could end us. Like, you know, there's like just like thousands of metric tons of carbon in the Arctic, just under glaciers. And if those glaciers melt, that carbon gets released into the atmosphere. We're gonna turn into Venus overnight, practically. So like super exacerbated greenhouse gas effect, meaning it's magnifying all the sun coming through, and it will heat up everything under the atmosphere very, very quickly, like Venus, which is like 450 degrees or something underneath all the clouds, because it's kind of creating this oven-like effect with the sun reflecting off the clouds. And you know, on Venus, it's not a very hospitable place. It rains sulfuric acid, snows heavy metals. That could be us in just a matter of who knows how long until that glacier melts. This is why we need to stop, like, just running around trying to dismiss the danger, and, you know, just put that energy towards making excuses, towards taking steps to make sure we preclude stuff like that from happening, and we show the planet that, hey, maybe we do appreciate actually being here. I think it would be nice. I think it would be a nice gesture of ours to treat the planet nicely, because it's being like a very, very forgiving and understanding parent to us. So, yeah, we should step it up just a tiny bit, but also in terms of making our connections with others and our care for others a little bit better, and, you know, our worldview a little less self-centered. Like, there is without a doubt enough land and resources for everyone to have a plot, to have the fundamentals, Maslow's hierarchy sort of system required for happiness, life, and prosperity. If someone pisses it all away, that's on them. They can deal with the consequences. But, you know, if we manage to do that, say, tomorrow, then we know at least everyone has been given a fair shake. Because in this society, there's no such thing as a fair shake. The only people who get, you know, something like that are people who are, like, extremely dangerous elites who want nothing but to hoard funds and to sit on them for as long as possible. And that's a huge, huge problem. And, you know, it's a big reason why those prices are going up. Inflation happens, depressions happen. It's because there are people just hoarding money for God knows what. The apocalypse? What are you going to do with all that money once the apocalypse happens? Riddle me this. And, you know, there's just the problem with coming up with all these realizations in the span of 12 hours is that afterwards you experience that, you know, so-called dark night of the soul. You go, okay, I get it, but what the hell do I do? Oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And then you sink to your knees, you spend the next week in bed, and you feel very depressed. It's very common whether people have their spiritual awakenings with spirit or without. It's like being in the center of a tornado. And, you know, all these realizations are little pieces of debris flying around you. And you don't know which way to step because you don't want your step to, one, get you sucked into that tornado, and for two, to harm anything else, or to contribute to what is creating all the harm. And so, where's the next logical place to go from that? It really depends on your circumstances, so no, I can't give any magical answer on what that entails. But I guess, you know, for me, it's about trying to extend myself into places that I see that are full of people who are suffering, people who could, you know, use more help, more treatment, more care, more attention, if anything, from society. You know, like for me, I think, you know, having been, you know, a hardcore drug addict myself, I have a lot of compassion for people in those places, and you know, it's part of why, you know, part of like what I do for work essentially these days is, you know, help to make sure people get clean drugs, or, you know, alternatives to hard drugs. Not that I'm a drug dealer, I assist with the protests. But, you know, there's a lot of people who are extremely just disused and just cast aside by society, and it's really unfortunate, I think, especially with issues like drug addiction that don't discriminate. You know, the majority of people I see spiraling into drug addiction the quickest are the ones who have a lot of money and a lot of time on their hands, because those are fertilizer for a habit, a dangerous, hardcore addiction of a habit. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a misconception for a spiritual awakening to like necessarily be synonymous with that spiritual part. I think there are just instances of coming to terms with what you see as truth. And you know what? I may be wrong. I always entertain that. And that's, I think, an important reason why, you know, maybe these instances of like profound realization really shouldn't be classified always with spirit, because, you know, I find with spirituality, it affords people this ability to go, I'm not wrong, there's no way I'm wrong, because something bigger than me told me, and so it creates this infallibility, this self-assurance that is bulletproof. And yeah, I think that's potentially dangerous. I entertain the idea that I'm wrong. Hey, maybe climate change is not as bad as it really is. I doubt that, but I could be wrong. I still think if I am wrong, it's important to take measures to make sure that we're not going down a potentially apocalyptic path and just completely abusing the planet and you know, one another. I don't think that, what I have come to grasp on a fairly, deep and broad level, is necessarily that unreasonable. That essentially we have to be good to each other at the end of the day, good to the planet. And, another thing I realized that day was, this was kind of the first thing I realized that set off this chain of realizations. I was thinking, how do I determine whether an action I carry out is worth doing, essentially, and not just for me? Well, after a little bit of thought, I was like, well, am I still a decent person after doing it? Not only in my own eyes, but in the eyes of others. And so I thought, aha, actions from a place of morality and ethics as opposed to, and at the same time, I'm a rational person, I'm a logical person. I will make deductions based on, sort of logical equations in terms of thinking, so to speak. But that's different than, everyday interactions, intervening actions, helping actions, so on and so forth. And I think we have been kind of conditioned, programmed to believe that we should base our actions on what can earn us more, what can make us look more self-sufficient, and what can essentially give us bragging rights, for lack of a better word. That mentality, I think, is bred within a lot of people in the West. I think they tried to breed it in me. I see it in a lot of other people of my generation, younger generation. And it's unfortunate because it's, seeding this potential for just avaricious, wanton desire to fill one's pockets and, line their walls with as much material as possible, just really needless stuff, as serving no one except the individual. And, that is just inherently selfish. I think we need to teach people to consider others as well as themselves when they do something. And that is, I think, direly needed in this day and age. Other realizations that came to me that day were kind of like how, stuff like technology, it's like social media, for example, deliberately making us less attentive, so we have less of a capacity to hold on to an issue, ruminate over it, and actually formulate something that stands up against it and says, no, this is wrong. I will not stand for this, and I don't think anyone else should. It's just, we are essentially born into one cage, and we stumble from one into the next, into the next. And we are told we are free. We could be whatever we want. You were probably told as a kid, you could be an astronaut if you really wanted to. And I think that is sowing this self-centered worldview. This, I can do whatever I want because I deserve it. I don't feel free enough. I deserve to be more free. So it doesn't matter how many people I stomp on to get there. I will do what I need to do to be more free. What is freedom these days in terms of what it actually means? Well, I think it is a bastardization of what it should mean. I think what freedom should mean is getting away from the restrictions of the self, getting away from all of these things that have being imposed on us from, like the world around us, systems around us, but also that we have imposed on ourselves, and to learn kind of what it's like to just be energy in unison with all the other energy that is promoting life and immense great things in the universe. That's just me. But I think the idea now that like freedom is the liberation from, tyranny or whatever, is just a way to paint tyranny a different color and go, okay, it's not tyranny anymore. Not necessarily that I'm saying the West is synonymous with, the Stalingrad from Nazi Germany or anything like that. Like Guatemala 50 years ago, Argentina 50 years ago, it's not what I'm getting at, but that still doesn't necessarily mean that because we have something slightly better, we're still free without any unwarranted impositions on our autonomy. I mean, I know my political worldview, probably have just run based on the principle of communism. I mean, I personally think that human beings ruin absolutely everything. Whether it be religion, government, politics, bad people, run it into the ground. So it all sounds good in principle, right? Practice is something else, because you have to factor in that human element. But, like my political views more so are, the libertarian socialist views of, I don't think there should be regulatory agencies. I don't think, I believe, sure, if there's, there's a dissolution of everything that tries to control society tomorrow, and, all these, say, people like me who are disabled, okay, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to support each other? Let's band together and form a union for disabled people, and we can decide how much money goes to each person. I'm all for that, but what I'm not for is the formation of an agency, a government agency, to regulate that union, and then another government agency to regulate that regulatory office. That's how so much of it kind of works. It's redundant. Yes, it may be creating jobs, but it is creating useless jobs. Let's be real. Now, I've probably gone on for long enough, but I'm going to say that, you don't, well, I'll stress this because I've said it already. You do not need God or anything like that to understand what the fuck is going on. And I urge you to try to really think about what's going on. Think about what is truth to you. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there really is no infallible truth, because everything could be, everything is subjective. Everything I know is a product of my senses. It could be just a brain in a vat somehow. I entertain that, but I don't know. Just like I don't know with God, with spirit, so on and so forth. So, because of that, I, by default, live objectively and in reality. That is, I may be by psychedelic drugs, yeah, sure, but unless I'm doing DMT where I'm going for, 15 minutes, I want to just do enough so I still have a foot. Some grounding in this world, so I can learn more about how I can expand my impact and in a positive way in this world during my time here. And I urge you to try and do the same. Now, I would also urge you to share what, this spiritual awakening means for you. I would find that very interesting. I would like to promote some discussions here. I think that would be great. I'd be happy to participate in some. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Just felt I didn't hit my douche food enough for you, so yeah. I will upload a couple other videos with this one, and enjoy. Have a good day.